Hello, this is Teresa, co-host of the Earrings Off podcast. Today we're going to learn about heart rate variability, or HRV for short. HRV is said to be a non-invasive and informative tool. It is often used as an indicator of the body's ability to regulate stress and recover from it. Health practitioners, such as our guest today, Greg Elliot, use HRV analysis to predict potential health issues and tailor interventions to improve overall health and well-being. A little bit more about our guest today. Greg Elliot is an exercise physiologist, osteopath, and an entrepreneur who is on a mission to help everyone own their own health through education, motivation, and actionability. He is a HRV and wearable technology thought leader, speaker, and a sought-after healthcare practitioner. This is some good information, y'all. Enjoy. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
Well, we have with us today Greg Elliot. Welcome, Greg, to Earrings Off.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here and share some little nuggets about health and well-being for your audience.
Okay, great. So tell us, what is heart rate variability, HRV?
Yeah, this is one of the topics that's, really swept health and wellness by storm over the last 10 years. And you see it more and more with all the wearables coming out now and smartwatches that are utilizing this metric, and more research is showing the value of it for health span and longevity. And I think a lot of people get it confused with heart rate. Heart rate is 60 beats per minute, 90 beats per minute, and people are very familiar with that. But what's significantly more important is actually the frequency of which those beats occur. So me and my patient can have the same resting heart rate, 60 beats per minute, where mine beats like a metronome. It's super consistent on the second, every second. And my patient will have a fluctuating, rhythmic where it kind of speeds up and slows down over that time. And we both have the same resting heart rate. But what research is showing is the fact that my patient is in a healthier, happier, more well state than I am, which is very counterintuitive to what people think. We think of we need our body to be very, stagnant and very consistent. Homeostasis is a word, and what it means is we want to maintain a nice, stable environment. We can't have our blood sugars too high or too low. So it's very counterintuitive to what we know. But when you start to unpack some of the science of it all, understand why that's the case, we start to see this across all areas of health, not only biological or physical health, but mental health and social health and well-being as well.
Okay.
To follow up on that one, how do you, I'm thinking about, I have a Fitbit, right? And I do look at that heart rate, but how do I know what the HRV is? It doesn't tell me, does it?
Yeah, it's a great point. So the older models of the Fitbits don't measure that, but it seems that every new model that has come out in the last few years, it does measure it. And so it's not necessarily a measurement that is very good during the day or during activity, especially when it comes from the wearables. It's mainly from a rested state. So a lot of the wearables, when they report your heart rate variability, what they actually do is at the onset of sleep, because there's a lack of motion that happens. It's super important for that, because more motion gives some artifacts and it makes the readings not as accurate. But they do, every few minutes they take a sample of your heart rate, but they also get the heart rate variability at that time. And when you wake up in the morning, it gives you your HRV score. And through the nighttime, this is what your average amount of heart rate variability is. And it gives you insights into, okay, well, am I in a recovered rest and digest state? Am I am I fully recovered, or to the point, is my body still stressed for any reason? It gives some really good insights and detail into that.
You know what? Thank you so much for that. I have a justification now for that smartwatch that's on my Christmas list.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, because I too have the older
I
Fitbit.
do. I
Thinking,
do.
okay, I need a
Yeah,
model.
I need a new model. Yes, for sure. Okay, tell me, why is that HRV important to our health?
What I say with HRV, to make it kind of a holistic picture of it all, looks at our ability to have stress resilience. Stress is, we need to manage stress. Stress is good, but too much stress is bad. So we have to make sure that we're having the right amount of stress and we're recovering from that. It gives us our ability to understand how much stress our body is under. That if we're too into the sympathetic or fight or flight state on a continuous basis, or we're more in a rest and digest state. The what's great about HRV is that it gives an overall indication of that, right? So overall, stress or not stress, am I doing well, am I not doing well? The problem with it all is that it's very nuanced in the fact that we don't know what the stress is from. You can't determine saying that it was lack of sleep, or it was my work stress, or maybe it was the pizza that I ate that day. It's indeterminate of that. All it says is that the behaviors you had throughout the day, whatever, body's in a stress state, you didn't recover through your sleep, and now you got to make sure that you're a little more careful today. It gives an indication. It's not necessarily like, oh, low HRV, I'm super stressed, I can't work out today, I gotta just relax and be in bed. It's like, no. It's more just a warning sign. It's that you see your HRV is a little bit lower than you typically would see. Is that you got to go through the day of getting, okay, well, I got to make sure that I get good hydration in. Maybe take a couple breaths and walk outside, get into nature. Plan to go to bed a little bit earlier that night, and just kind of prepare your body not to be overstressed through the day, because you'd be more susceptible to various things such as injuries or illnesses, pathogens, and all that. So kind of having a nice balance between, it being having enough stress, but not too much.
So indirectly, if we're monitoring like our sleep, for instance, our hydration and exercise, indirectly, we're actually impacting our HRV for good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that lets because the example I give around, how this can help you is, how many times have you heard, like, this diet is the best for everybody, right? Oh,
Right,
it's,
right.
oh, it's carnivore, or it's vegan, and all that stuff. I completely agree. They all work. They're all good in its nature, but some are better for other people, right? And it depends on the individual. HRV will give you great feedback of if your main thing you're changing is your nutrition, how much of an actually positive impact that has on you. Are you getting all the nutrients that your body needs? Are you meeting the nutritional demands of your physiology? If you are, your heart rate variability will actually increase. If you're not, it will stay the same, or sometimes I've seen it quite often is decrease in the wrong direction, because there's it's not meeting some sort of demand. Your body's not recovering. It's still more in that fight or flight state. So it's great feedback in that standpoint. And so what I usually do with my patients is, we do a baseline. We say, don't change anything right now. Let's just get a baseline. If they're new to wearables, they don't have one. I can mention ones that are popular, that are out there, that are very good to use. Start measuring and see where your baseline is, anywhere from about 7 to 10 days, depending on what's going on. Then we start tinkering one little behavior at a time, whether that's a meditation, whether that's sleep pattern change, whether that's a different exercise plan, whether that's going out and connecting with friends and enjoying time with others. It depends on that, and we look at that impact that intervention has on the individual. And so that gives me that feedback saying, yes, that's the right intervention for this person at the right time. It's great in regards to intervention efficacy for me as a practitioner.
This is a game changer, Greg. I love it.
Yeah, and it's interesting is that, this has been around for a long period of time. We understand the value, but it hasn't been commercially available. For a long time, we had to use EKG or ECG devices, which are thousands of dollars and clunky and big, and you couldn't carry them around. And it wasn't until about 10, 15 years ago that this information was accessible to the consumer with the advancements of technology. And now it's to the point where we have these small little devices that go on a wrist or your finger that can measure this almost as accurate as an ECG now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, very good.
How do we impact our health the most?
Yeah, and this is where HRV is a phenomenal biofeedback tool to determine that. And when I talk about health, I always like to kind of define health, because everyone has a different idea of what actually health means. With our companies, I always ask this question as a part of the interview process when we're hiring new people: is what does health mean to you? When I say someone's healthy or health, like what does that actually mean? And you get a wide range of answers. It's waking up with energy. It's enjoying time with my family or friends. It's be able to go out and do that run and feel like $1 million. It's health is different for every individual.
Right.
But what it is, the definition of it, is the fact that it's the biological, psychological, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease. So you cannot look at health, and that's what our health, medical system does now, is we look at health into silos, individual processes where you kind of look at, you have a specialist for the liver or for the lungs, or you have certain these individuals. Well, we know that the human body is way more complex, and if you impact one thing, it's going to impact the other. And so how do we impact health is that we have to do a whole health understanding of all these areas, from biological, psychological, and our social well-being, things that we can control. There's things that are non-modifiable. We talk about our biological health. As much as we would like, we can't change our age. We can't change our genetics. They are predetermined, but there's things that can impact those to make those things right. Our biological is our sleep, our physical activity, and our nutrition. When we talk about psychological, yes, you can have maybe depression, but what do we do about having low mood? We have to look at your emotional regulation. You have to look at your mind-body connection, or your interception, your purpose, self-acceptance, your agency, the self-confidence you have to complete tasks, your connection and relationships. So you have to look at all of those areas, as a individually, to determine, hey, which one of these three seem to be more the low-hanging fruit for me, and then use wearable technology as a feedback of saying, hey, when I work on these areas, it actually makes a meaningful difference to my body.
Right. So how did you get into this, Greg? Was there something that happened? What was the impetus behind this?
So it actually started with my master's degree. So I, during my master's degree, we were looking at non-invasive ways of looking at heart function, particularly with people that are suffering from heart failure and get different heart diseases. And so a part of my thesis, I had to research ways, non-invasive ways of measuring heart function to be able to validate the specific device and kind of give some background into that. During my research around that, I started to learn about heart rate variability and what it was, and from a very high level perspective, and then started to think about it a little bit more. And I did my schooling in Pennsylvania, and when I came back home to Vancouver, Canada, I started hearing about heart rate variability monitoring a lot more. But this is more in the high performance realm. So people like, is today a good day to train or not? And I was like, oh, interesting. Like that's I see a lot of people are doing it. And I started to dig down into the research of it all. And when I understood, like, it was rooted in looking at disease processes and, like more of a health related thing than performance. I'm like, well, what's the connection between these to why are people, where all the research is about, heart attacks or, fetal instances of various conditions. How are high performance triathletes, using these things, and is the why? And the connection was stress management, was looking at the ability to accumulate. Now, athletes, it's easy. What's their major stressor? Their training program. So it's easy to determine, is today a good day to train or not, because that's their biggest stressor. But when you deal with regular human beings, it could be anything. It could be work. It could be your relationships. It could be your poor diet or poor sleep. It's a myriad of different things, and it becomes significantly more complex when you deal with that. But that's how I got first introduced to it, and I started to play around with it a little bit more with my colleagues, and then everything kind of took off from there.
Tell you, I'm sitting here convicted because, to be honest, the only time I wear my Fitbit is when I'm at the gym to make sure I don't have a heart attack and to make sure that I'm getting the number of steps. I only wear it when I know I'm going to be doing something that's going to be physically taxing. And when I finish, I take it off. I look at everything and I'm monitoring it while I'm working out, and then that's it.
Yeah, and so then this is where I saw an article today about looking at, are wearables very valid? And to me, it's like, that's kind of the wrong way to look at it. And it's very similar to what you're describing. It's more of what we call a behavior change tool, right? It
Mm-hmm.
gives feedback around your behaviors to the point
Yeah.
of like when you go and you see your Fitbit, it may not be as accurate as saying I did this many steps, my heart rate's exactly this, but it definitely tells you if you worked out harder than last time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
It's a
that's for
relative
sure.
number of
Yeah.
saying like, oh, like it's a
Yeah.
behavior change tool of that standpoint. And with the advancement technology, yes, activity was a big one that a lot of people wanted. Sleep tracking is another one
Yeah.
that people want to
Yeah.
be able to look at the sleep. But now it's becoming absolutely, so ingrained in a lot of these other biometrics where they're even validating some ways that we can use these wearables to look at blood sugar in
Yeah.
regards to people for
Yeah.
diabetes.
Yeah.
And we're looking at that it's getting pretty close to getting a pretty accurate representation of that. Also, blood pressure is another one. Also, to a point, I have a friend that's started a company, and she's looking at can we use wearable to determine our emotional regulation, where HRV is great for understanding emotional intensity, right? It's to the point of like, am I sitting in my chair here, or am I watching my favorite sports team in the last couple seconds of a game?
Right.
It's intensity, but what it can't necessarily do is look at, well, is my team winning or losing? It's an intense situation, but is it a bad
Right.
feeling?
Right.
Or a
Right.
good feeling, yeah.
Right.
But they're actually discovering the fact that we can actually, from these wearables, determine if it's a positive or negative emotion as well. So you talk about the advancements of what this feedback can do for individuals of saying, hey, we can determine if like you're in a bad mood or a good mood. Unbelievable where these wearables are going in regards to supporting like whole health behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about the different types of wearables? Like, are there ones that you would recommend over the others?
Yes, so I mean, there's many wearables out there now. We see like
Hmm.
there's the glasses, and then there's the shirts, and then there's the non-invasive and invasive. Like invasive ones are the blood glucose monitors that are very big out there and all that stuff. But to me, those are a little more not as widely adopted, and so the more widely adopted wearables are these smart watches or non-invasive type of technologies that are out there, and I would say they kind of fit in two categories with these. They're the wearable piece, which I'll explain, and then there's the smartwatch side. I'll do the smartwatches first because I think people are more familiar with those. This is your Apple Watch, this is your Fitbits, this is your Garmin's that are
yeah.
out there.
Okay,
These are ones
yeah.
that have some sort of display that have many different functions that they can do. The downside with some of these is the fact that because there's some sort of interaction that people have with the display, that it drains some of the battery life. And so to make it a good user experience, to have both a high quality sensor and a high interface, a high quality of interface where we can do many things, it drains the battery quite significantly right now. And so the user experience of that, you have to charge your watch significantly more often. And so those smartwatches don't have, they're getting there, but they don't have the greatest quality sensors because of that feature. They don't want people having to charge it every day. They want to have to charge every 5-7 days. So to keep the battery life longer, they have decreased quality of sensors that don't have as much information or as high quality information from there. So that's one thing. But people like some of the functionality. They want to have a little bit of both, and very similar. They just want to be able to see some cool stuff that it does. But it's definitely getting better to that standpoint. The other ones are more wearables that don't have a display. And the two most popular ones that are out there is a company called Whoop, WHOOP. They're a wrist-based wearable. You see them all over sports. It's quite significant in that standpoint. It's a wrist-based wearable, no display, just a strap.
Really?
The company is
Okay, I've
Oura
seen
Ring, O-U-R-A Ring. It's a ring-based.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
So this is one of them right
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
I
Mhm.
know it's audio, but it's a ring-based wearable that you put onto your finger, and you
Yeah.
get high-quality data from them.
I've looked into those. You like that?
So the reason why I like Oura Ring in particular is they don't hide behind a lot of these algorithms that other companies do. They show you the raw data. So for me as a practitioner, I want to know what goes into every score and what the scores are. When you kind of give me an arbitrary number, I don't know how to actually action it, right? So you say, if they don't show you the breakdown of your sleep, they say your sleep score is 20. Well, 20 of what? Like, why is it bad? Like, if I don't know what was in the number, I don't know what to help you with. And so the reason why I like Aura is they show you everything that's involved and where you sit in regards to that and give you that feedback. That's why I like them a lot in that standpoint. Obviously, they're a little on the pricier side.
Yeah,
but
they are.
provide a lot of data clarity around their algorithms. They show you what goes into it. So you can actually, as a practitioner, make impacts the same, because if your sleep is low because you are awake a lot versus you don't have a lot of REM sleep, those are two different type of interventions into what's going on in that standpoint. So I like them just for that data quality, one, and two, the fact that they show a lot of their raw data that we can be able to make better decisions as practitioners.
All right, Greg, can you talk to us about what is health span longevity?
Yeah, so this has been a big buzzword in the last year or so. Peter Attia, who's a medical doctor, he specializes in this type of area, trying to reverse the aging process. And health span is having a high quality of life for the longest period of time. And then we talk about lifespan is how long you live, right? So purely based on chronological age, but it doesn't encompass the quality of life, which health span does. And those together, we talk about the science of longevity together. And what we're finding is, and we this has been said in our health and well-being space for a significant amount of period of time, is that the advances that we've had over the last 50 years in regards to helping people with chronic conditions, it's not the treatments. It's not when people get the disease what we can do to sustain their life. It's the detections first to determine that we're on the wrong path, to make corrections and make sure that we delay those processes for as long as possible. So it's that predeterminate detection, and that's where everything is going now, this preventative markers, where there's companies out there that you can get a significantly comprehensive blood assessment that your doctors won't do. But if you want to pay a little bit of money to be able to determine those things, you can go out and do it. And so it's great that we're going to that model. It's sad, the fact that it's cash pay and it's out of pocket, those areas, because I think we can all agree that the fact that if you spend a little bit up front, it's going to save a lot in the back end of things. Exactly. So it's great that we see that out there, that the things are trending and people are interested in doing it. People are getting full body MRI scans and paying out of pocket for that. And so we see this move to preventative health. And I see wearables being a great understanding for people that if they don't have to, a lot of money to be able to spend, it kind of like, well, how can I get some high quality health feedback based on what's going on in that? And I find HRV, when you look at all cause mortality and morbidity, HRV is an absolute proxy for that and gives great indications that, hey, am I on the right track? Am I doing all the right things? Or do I need to be able to investigate a little bit further and start to be able to change some of my behaviors?
I can see where these tools would be quite helpful to you as a health practitioner, because when you have clients, then it's not like they can't see the evidence right before them. If it's there, the data's there.
I completely agree. It's like, do I have to wait 6 months to get blood results before I determine there's a problem? Do I have to wait 6 months to a year to get a scan done to determine if I'm on the right track? Like, that's like, how can I expect my patients to be able to maintain the behaviors, altering behaviors, which is already hard enough to be able to do for that long without any feedback into what's going on? Right. And I say, using HRV as a feedback mechanism. The reason why there may be other biomarkers out there that significantly, have a great amount of understanding for health and well-being, but to me, HRV is non-invasive, right? It's correlated to any type of health and well-being condition that's out there, and the fact it's a continuous marker that you can get on a daily basis. Right. So this is where I see the value of using these wearables and tracking heart rate variability, is that it can give a significant amount of feedback. Like, one of the examples I say is I can have a supplement that helps heart health for 99.9% of people, provides significant amount of improvement, 20% on it lowers cholesterol by 20%. I want to know that if that 0.1% is in a room, that 1.1%, like, that they don't have to continue on it, that it doesn't affect them. And this HRV will give me that feedback of saying, yes, like, this is good for almost everybody, but I want to make sure that it's good for you. I don't want to have to go down this rabbit hole and you spending this money that it doesn't make any meaningful difference, and that we have to wait for 6 months and you spending hundreds of dollars on supplement that doesn't actually even work. And so HRV gives me that immediate, consistent feedback so I can make smarter decisions quicker to help my patients better.
Well, Greg, as you're talking, I just keep thinking, I haven't been a very good girl, but I believe Santa's going to be very good to me this year. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, it's that's. I
Yeah.
mean, the number one questions I get is, what wearables are good, and so I always
Yeah.
love to kind of mention the ones that are high quality, just very good companies that are out there that are doing phenomenal things
Yeah.
that can provide a lot of value for people for sure. And again, I have no monetary affiliation with any of these companies. I just truly believe in what they're doing. The ones that I recommend for people to
Okay.
use.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So, what are 5 things that we need to do to be healthy?
When people talk about this, because we can talk about so many things that are good for you, right? All
Mhm.
around, to the point of I always bring this example up where I was at a pretty large conference in the United States, and there was a keynote speaker there, a very famous functional medicine doctor, going through all the things that we know that they can improve health and longevity and things like that. And after 197 things that he's mentioned, I'm like, I don't know who has the money or time in the day to do all these
Right.
things.
Right.
I shut off my brain. I'm like, okay, there's too many things. Like, you have to make it a little bit simple for people. They're not going to do
Yeah.
all this stuff. And luckily, somebody went up there and asked a question. He's like, love what you're doing. Showed science behind all these metrics and all these interventions. Phenomenal. What are the 5 things that people can just take away that they can impact their health and well-being the most? What has the most impact into that? And he said these 5 things, and I truly believe these are the big things. Is one is obviously, physical activity is a great one, very simple to be able to do, right? And I always say something is better than nothing. The people that show the most significant improvements in regards to overall health is when they go from nothing to something. So it's like, it doesn't matter what it is. Walk, I don't care, as long as that's conscious of mind. It's a phenomenal thing, and I think it's one of the most important aspects of health and well-being. Second is nutrition. When you talk about having a nutritious, and it's more about being conscious of what you're just putting in your body. I always say, as long as you kind of eat the way that the food came to you, or was able to be produced, it's probably the best, right? Focus on 80% of your foods coming from the way that they should be, not a lot of processing from there. Third, sleep is obviously another important one, to be able to focus on that. And the most important part of sleep, and because we can wake up and do various things, it's about the circadian rhythm, meaning the fact that we try to fall asleep and we try to wake up at the same time. We found through research that is by far the most important factor when it comes to addressing sleep, is trying to fall asleep and wake up. That produces the most success, and many different metrics, how we measure success. It produces the greatest success if we just have that one thing in place in regards to our sleep. The fourth is to be able to manage stress from our life. The guy that came up with the word stress, his name is Dr. Hans Selye, and he was an endocrinologist in Canada. Shout out there. And he came up with the word stress, and his famous quote is that it's not stress that kills us, it's our reaction to it. All 3 of us can have the same stress that hits us, but we can all react to it in a very drastically different way. Where I may isolate, Lou, you may get angry and frustrated, and Teresa, you just want to be able to ignore it and not have to deal with it and go to something else. Like, those are all short-term coping mechanisms for stress, but those aren't good. And our perception around that is very difficult. So we have to be able to understand when stress comes on and be able to address it in an appropriate standpoint. That can be a huge impact to us, and there's many different ways to be able to do that. But the recognition of things are altered and dealing with it appropriately is big. And then the last one, number 5, which we know now through talking about the blue zones, talking about the Harvard study that was done, and longevity is connection, relationships with people.
Right. Yeah.
And I always say COVID was a phenomenal social experiment. That the fact that all at one time, our ability to be able to connect with people was drastically changed. And we now, and will continue on for years, be able to see the impact that that's had on people's physical and mental health. We knew physical health is always important. Our body, go through that stuff and to be able to deal with those things. We had a big push over the last 15, 20 years around mental health and well-being, being much about that, mood and emotions. But then COVID really put everything to light, that whole picture. Again, talk about what health is. It's biological, psychological, and social well-being. And I think that was rough, but a very timely and a very important time in our lives to understand when we remove social connection from people, be able to touch people that we love, be able to be close to people that we love, when we can't do that anymore, what that actually does to us. And it's now going to be, for years, used to be studied to show what that did.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, Greg, you have certainly shared a lot a wonderful information, and it has been our delight to talk to you about this.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Do you have any parting words, parting information for our audience today?
What I always try to instill in my patients is the fact that 50% of our health is due to our behaviors, more than our genetics, our environment, and our access to care combined. And so what I try to instill is the fact that we have a lot of health agency. We have a lot of control over our outcomes when sometimes it may feel that it's taken away from us. When we're diagnosed, we have a label of a condition, whether it's depression or cancer or diabetes. We kind of feel that it's our control of our health and well-being has been taken, and now we're a victim, and then we have to rely on a lot of our healthcare providers to be able to fix us, where we have a lot of tools in our own toolbox to be able to take ownership of our health and well-being, and just to be able to determine which area of health, how we can best do it. Are the interventions that we're doing, are they powerful for us as an individual? Be able to track that with accessible wearable technology, with tracking HRV and tracking sleep and activity, is a phenomenal way to be able to develop that agency for individuals to making sure they live a long, healthy life.
Okay. And how can our audience get in touch with you for follow-up?
Yes, I just launched a website. I was just finally I was able to do that. So it's gregelliot.ca. There, I just kind of started to put up some blog posts and some free ebooks about this. Starting to introduce like what is HRV and some ways to be able to improve it. So I'm slowly starting to have those out there. And if you're interested about improving your HRV or just health in general, I always have like a quick little call with individuals, making sure that I'm the right fit. I have certain skills in certain areas, but I have a great network of other people that help in certain areas where they want to deep dive in nutrition or really want to work on your breath work or biofeedback of dealing with stress in the moment. I can help with those things, but I also have experts in those areas that I can point people towards to be able to help that area. So that's where you can find me to be able to answer any questions or provide some information that you may have.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so very much for joining us here on Earrings Off. We so appreciate the discussion and the information you've shared. Our very best to you, Greg, here at Earrings Off. Take
And
good
thank
care.
you guys. And I just want to say is I know this, podcasting and everything you do is a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort to be able to get, quality guests, which you guys do out there. And I think this type of movement starts from what you guys are doing, the grassroots movement, to be able to get this information out there, to get people healthy and well and make, good decisions in all areas of life. So I thank you guys for putting the effort to do this. I know a lot of your listeners find it super rewarding, so thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take good care.